Now, today is Saturday. I hope it's a beautiful day. But today, whatever the weather is going on, Judges chapter 2, verse 16. Didn't we finish chapter 2? Yes, I want to rewind a little bit because I want to look at the nature of idolatry. And so we're going to look at Judges chapter 2, verse 16 to Judges 3, verse 6. So we're making a little progress today, okay? Again, want to rewind, talk about idolatry because it's something I think today in our contemporary culture, in our more scientific, that doesn't necessarily mean better or not. It's just we have a different way of viewing the world than the ancient world did. And so religiously, the idea of going to a building where there'd be an image, an icon, an idol, and viewing that as a representation of our God, that's not something we connect with. And so I think for many of us, the idea of idolatry is just very abstract, or something that, well, like other peoples do, or more primitive cultures or older, like ancient cultures did. It doesn't really kind of resonate with us. In the Voice translation in chapter 17, it uses a phrase, passionately pursued other gods, to describe the heart of Israel. And so there's this intense relationship that's being described with idols. But one of the problems with a false god, an idol, something that could be good, but we make it an ultimate end. We make it that this is the thing that I pursue above all other things. The thing about any of our false gods, whether that could be in the ancient world, Baal, which was a god of kind of agriculture and like fertility, Ashtaroth, which was a goddess of sexuality, and so there's things where in our culture can be very kind of sex obsessed, or at least have very unhealthy views about that aspect of how God has made us and made us to flourish. But whenever we pursue something like, say, money, sex, power are often kind of three big things that our culture kind of promotes as being, these are things to chase after and go after, however you see and deem best. None of those things, money, sex, power, Baal, Ashtaroth, or Molech, or any of the ancient gods, none of them actually care about the worshiper, the one who's pursuing that god or that thing. And what happens when we pursue something other than God, we become vulnerable to becoming its slave. As an aside, the Bible often describes idolatry through the image of adultery because it's unfaithfulness to covenant relationship with God. So it's not so much idolatry is in a way, it's not kind of so much a sin of the Canaanite peoples in the aspect of they had not been, or they were not acting in direct disobedience to a covenant commitment that they had made. Israel had. But what they're still doing is pursuing something that is created rather than the creator. And so God, we see here, is sending judges to rescue Israel, which is a way God's offering a choice of where do you want to find rescue? Where do you want to find security for your life? In these gods or me? The people couldn't rescue themselves. That's why they're groaning. And instead of, I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I'm going to earn my way to security with God. I'm going to defeat these oppressors by myself and find freedom for myself. They couldn't do it. They knew they couldn't do it. And so they are turning to God. And God has compassion. You don't find Baal or any of the Canaanite gods having compassion on their worshipers anywhere, or looking to rescue. The nature of idolatry, ancient or modern, is that Yahweh is understood, Yahweh's believed, you don't have ultimate authority. And so these other gods can be served. These other goals can be my master. That maybe I can kind of serve you here on Sunday. I can do the church thing. I can do that. But then how I conduct myself, what I do with my paycheck, or how I look to behave in my relationships or in my family, or what I look to do to kind of, I'm going to gain influence and I'm going to gain kind of power and authority in my workplace or in the community. The idea that we can have both of those things, that's not new. That's as old as Adam and Eve. See, it's one of the things that provide our identity and our value, our families, our career, our wealth, pleasure, ambitions, what occupies our time, our resources, our attention. See, we can take anything and make it a God, a master, something that shapes us, that controls how we use our time, that draws and holds our attention. So we need to take the aspects of our life and ask ourselves, am I willing to do whatever God may say in this area? It could be about what kind of media you consume, what kind of television you watch, how much of it you do. Are we willing to accept whatever God sends in this area? Are we willing to prosperity or poverty? Sending me overseas, keeping me here at home? See, if the answer is no, we're not willing to do, or we're not willing to accept whatever God says, at minimum, we're in danger of allowing an idol access to our hearts, access to our allegiance. And most likely we already have. God's judgment here is that he says, I'm no longer going to drive out the other nations, because they're going to provide a test for each generation to display their loyalty. Now the Canaanites become a different kind of test. Again, it's kind of like that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Are you going to do things your own way, or are you going to take from the tree of life and trust the life and provision God has made? Tests can be failed. Tests can also be passed. And these nations listed at the beginning of chapter 3 offer an always present reason to depend on God. And so the question is Israel going to follow Yahweh or the Baals? And verse 6 shows they would not choose wisely in helping themselves stay loyal to Yahweh. So here's the question I want to ask us. How do you help yourself stay loyal to Yahweh? What do you do? Who's part of your life? How do you open yourself up and engage with others to keep connected, rooted in Jesus? Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If we're not rooted in Jesus, there can be idols easily knocking on the doors of our hearts, and will open. This is going to be a sobering book to go through. So let's hold on, trust God, and we'll get through this together. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today would you know his peace. God bless.